today on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh with you to take a look at a busy and important week of NFL action. We will likely be primarily discussing what Sunday brought us. We've talked quite a bit about Thanksgiving and Friday, but there are still appropriately some leftovers, and we will handle that as well. Now, a little bit of good news, bad news situation on our show today. Bad news, no Joe Lisi. Good news, Tom Vecchio is here. Tom, always good to see you, my friend. How are we feeling?
I'm doing good. Like you said, there's certainly a lot to get to. Super important time of the year. Teams pushing for the playoffs. You know, we're down to the final third or so of the season. Teams in and out of the playoffs. We've had some injuries as usual. There's a ton to get to.
There certainly is. We're going to start, though, with the AFC South. And not always can you see a number and immediately be able to take advantage of it, but you can identify a bad number. The Indianapolis Colts, following their loss to Kansas City, remaining AFC favorites, was the worst piece of booking I think we've seen this year. Although it was slight, you could tell the Colts situation after that loss, after the stacking of wins for both Houston and Jacksonville, they were in more of a precarious position than those numbers had suggested. Well, now the market has moved once again. As the Colts lose at home to the Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud back under center for Houston, the Colts are not in the top three for the AFC outright market, and their division price is now a plus money number. After being booked runaway style, Tom, understandably so, the Colts not only feel in danger of losing this division, they feel in danger of missing the playoffs to me.
And things will not get easier from here. I know we just showed the graphic for their remaining schedule. It is, I don't want to say it's getting late early, but the remaining schedule for them does not look good. And, you know, there's a point to be made. As you said, they stacked up all these wins. Could they eke their way into the playoffs? Absolutely. Could they split the season series with the Jags, who they've yet to play? Sure. Can they take one of those two games versus Seattle and San Francisco? Sure, but I'm not going to have any amount of confidence in them heading into the playoffs. And with the Daniel Jones was a calf injury, all of a sudden, hang on, it's a fractured fibula. That's not going to be healed by Sunday. It's not going to be healed by Thursday. This is going to be an ongoing thing. And frankly, it's only going to get worse as he continues to play on it. So the conversation about them potentially missing the playoffs, no one was going to be saying that in week 7, 8. Hang on, they're off to a 6-1 start. Now we are looking at a completely different story for the Colts, and the back few games of the season are a gauntlet for them.
And I want to say with Indianapolis, I don't look at them. You will likely hear the word fraud tossed around maybe on this show throughout coverage, right? I don't necessarily think Indianapolis is a fraud. I don't think they were ever as good as people were describing them, right? They were great bullies. They were able to beat up on bad football teams. What I do think for Indianapolis, though, is it's all kind of collapsing on them due to the schedule that Thomas talked about. I actually liked the spot for Indy yesterday. Their team total over was my best bet. First time in a while I was wrong on a team total best bet. It happens. It was a bad call. I'm not going to blame it on anything other than that and give the Texans defense a world of credit. But and I know the Texans defense is special. It's an undeniable top 3 unit in football. But the Colts have to play Jacksonville 2 more times. The Texans, again, the Seahawks and the Niners. This is the hardest remaining schedule in the NFL by far. I mean, it is not even close. I'm sure people have seen the Tankathon strength of schedule graphics that get tweeted out, and it'll have the column toughest opponents and then the column easiest opponents. The Colts' easiest opponents column is empty. They're the only team in football with such a situation. So the question becomes, Tom, so why, again, it's not that I see Indianapolis as frauds, but Jacksonville and Houston feel pesky. So to start on the Houston piece of it, I actually think they are the best team in this division. I think they're the most likely to go on a deep playoff run. They have pedigree with a quarterback who has won multiple playoff games. And when you can play defense at this level, you're a really scary out. Now, Houston may not get in, but if they're in, they're absolutely live for a run.
They absolutely are. And, maybe what we take from the beginning portion of the season of the Colts, as you said, they were beating up on a lot of bad teams, but that was their peak. Right now they are, I don't want to use the fraud. They are regressing to really where they should have been, which is an up and down, just over 500 kind of team, which I think we'll see play out really from the second half of the season on. The first few weeks, Daniel Jones and the offense, you looked at some of their numbers, they were scoring on a points per drive at a historic rate. It wasn't the best this season, wasn't the best of the last 5 years. It was one of the best this century across the NFL. So that was bound to regress. So when we couple that with injuries and all these sorts of things, plus the remaining schedule, which is, again, super, super tough, all of those things collide at the same point, and it leaves them in a spot where I think they're going to be hung out to dry. I think they're going to be grasping at any win they can possibly get. I don't think they'll be making the playoffs. We have to talk about the other emerging AFC teams that can be pushing into the playoffs. And frankly, I would rather be looking at those teams to make the playoff odds rather than the Colts right now. And as you described, the fact that they are plus money for to win the division, I think that's just a wrong price on them. We could be looking at a toss-up for any of these teams.
Yeah, I'm very interested with Houston. It is a tough ask. And that's why I said, you're going to mix in some of the Thanksgiving stuff here. The next game is at KC.
Yeah.
The Chiefs, sometimes I don't know what to really do with this team. The reality, I think, for Kansas City is there are just too many ways to beat them. There are too many ways things can go wrong for them. The offense isn't consistent enough. The defense isn't consistent enough. So you might look at the game against Dallas and say, well, don't worry, Houston doesn't have an offense like the Cowboys. They're not going to be able to exploit Kansas City in that way. Couldn't agree more. But the Texans are capable of holding Kansas City to 17. So I think that game, Tom, it becomes, look, so that'll be that very well could be nail in the coffin for the Chiefs as well. But that's not ideal for the Texans. I don't care what anybody says. I know sometimes people love to fade this Chiefs team. They had to have the Colts game. They got it. That was the game more than any other they played they needed this year. Maybe the Baltimore game at home where they would have fallen to 1-3 in Arrowhead. That's my hesitation on running to some of these Texans futures.
And I would say the same thing. I think there are two games this upcoming week that are effectively, win and not in, but if you lose, you're out. You're not going to be mathematically eliminated. But so it's going to be this game, and it's also going to be Cowboys-Lions, which we'll get to, later on. That's effectively an elimination game, right? And again, because it's just of where the losses are, where the wins are, going down throughout the rest of the season. They're only going to pick up so many more wins. So effectively, this is on the season for both teams. And there's a path forward for the Chiefs, but it also means that someone else has to drop out. There's a path forward for the Texans. Someone else has to drop out. So I see this game playing out more as we saw Chiefs-Colts rather than Chiefs-Cowboys. Low-scoring game, field goal-ish type game. Because as you said, the Texans don't have that offense, but they have a significantly better defense. And if this game ends 21-17, 20-17, I think that's where we're going to be.
I think for and the reality is, though, if Kansas City gets that win, while it doesn't guarantee they are in, they and the Texans would sit 7-6. Chiefs with the tiebreaker. So that's where it comes in for Houston, right? We're trying to evaluate, can these teams actually break into the dance? And I just said I think the Texans are the best team in the AFC South. But that plus 350 price isn't reflective where the market says, oh, Kevin's way wrong here. Tom's wrong. This team isn't as good as these guys think. They put themselves behind the 8 ball, and situationally, they just may not be able to get there. We still have a lot to work through, though, with the AFC, Tom and I. The Jacksonville Jaguars are actually right now the 1 seed in the AFC South on tiebreakers. And then we had a huge result in Pittsburgh, and that still ties into what we saw in Baltimore earlier last week. We'll keep breaking it down right here on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh and Tom Vecchio.
the future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Seelig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
When LeBron James decides he's retiring, it is coming with trumpets blaring, Adam Silver by his side, and he is going on a state-by-state, coast-to-coast tour so that everyone can acknowledge how great he was and give him a parting gift and thank him for his amazing contributions to the NBA.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
The play is Our Fam. You don't know about Our Fam? Go look her up on social media. Go look at YouTube. 19-year-old from Spain, 6'6", block shots, runs the floor, rebounds, post up, inside, outside, pop the corn, serve the beer, and it can clean up the mess when you're done eating your meal. This lady is absolutely fantastic.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all three Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Right back here on SportsGrid, it is Pro Football Today. Quickly, before we get over to Pittsburgh, in Tennessee, the Jags get the job done against those Titans. Tom, I'm curious, what were your thoughts heading into this football game between Jacksonville and Tennessee? I don't know if this is a game you played or not, but give me an idea.
Definitely figured it to be a lower scoring game. I was looking at the props for Brenton Strange and Parker Washington and Brian Thomas being back. And, part of me thought, should I play two of them? I don't know who Trevor Lawrence is going to throw the ball to, but if I play two of the three, or I should say play all three, two of the three would come through and I come out net positive. Frankly, it's just a win for the Jags. I'm not impressed by it. It doesn't really move the needle on them. I will say, considering the fact that they won 25-3 and their run game was so terrible, that's something we need to talk about because we've seen some up and down production from Etienne. He was dealing with some injuries. I just expected them to have well over 100-plus yards on the ground when they're up by multiple scores, and they just didn't get there.
So I do think you mentioned the Jacksonville rushing performance. It is important for people to realize that Jeffrey Simmons being back is changing the Titans' run defense, and just be cautious with props. Like I was looking at some Bashal Tutin numbers, 8 carries, a 26.5 prop. He didn't really get close, right? Some of that is also Bashal Tutin's like the weirdest goal line back in the history of the National Football League. Like I cannot figure it out. He's supposed to be like the scat back, and instead it's just like, nope, you get the bulk carries down here. But early in the week, Tom, this line opened 7, and I thought I was going to be on Tennessee at that number. They had been getting better. They had been covering numbers at home, in division. Those 7s all went away, which gave me time to reassess. And what I kind of felt is Jacksonville should have lost to Arizona, and this Jekyll and Hyde, ebbs and flow, every other game team might have been due for a good one, and they were, and they stepped up. The question for me, and people might think it sounds crazy because they've won 3 in a row, 4 to 5 cents the break, is can they find that consistency, right? You talk about some of those pseudo-elimination games next week. They play the Colts next week at home. A win there for Jacksonville changes the conversation massively. It'll shift potentially, Tom. The Jags could go to minus money to win the AFC South if they knock off the Colts next week.
They really could, and the remaining schedule for them isn't that bad. They could pick up a win against the Jets. They could pick up a win versus the Titans to close out the season. Sure. The issue I have with the Jags is, to your point, there's no level of consistency. Some of the wins don't always look impressive, and when they lose, it looks bad. We see some real mistakes and the turnovers from Trevor Lawrence, and the consistency from the receivers isn't always there. We have players step up when Brian Thomas was out. Parker Washington became more of an option. But, to say that I am fully confident in them to cover a number at home as a home playoff favorite when they're going to be hosting a game because they win the division potentially, I would probably be looking to take the other side. Bills at Jags, could that be in play first round? Everyone would be on the Bills at that point. Yeah, the problem then becomes, though, Tom, all of a sudden it's Buffalo 3.5, and guys like you and I are like, all right, here we go with this Jacksonville. It's just sometimes the ebbs and flow of it all. Speaking of Buffalo, though, a gotta-have-it spot against Pittsburgh. They get it 26-7. What did you make of Buffalo's, by the way, who were down at the break 7-3, ended up a pretty dominant win over the Steelers? What I took away from it was that I was on the under on this game. Was not expecting a whole ton of points. The rushing performance by Buffalo was fantastic. And I expected them to lean into the rushing game. I didn't expect it to be this extreme and like this productive because, missing offensive linemen is a huge deal. So I didn't think they were going to be planning on dropping Josh Allen back 30, 35 times when TJ Watt is on the other side. They would lean into the rushing game to try and take that pressure away from him, coming off a game where it took 8 sacks against Houston on Thursday night last week or the week before, whatever you want to call it. So I'm very impressed with their run game. And it's good to see that they have that balance overall. I'm interested to see how we see the receiver core develop when it's all said and done, knowing that they have Cooks now. But I just see that as another piece of the puzzle rather than a true playmaker and a difference maker. I think for Buffalo, you needed a win, but I don't leave this game feeling different than I did entering, which is I don't trust this team to go on a deep run. I really don't. I look at Buffalo and I think defensively they are still super vulnerable, and I think Josh Allen has brought the turnovers back, and I think that is as likely to cost them as anything. I'm not trying to get into crazy debates, but I'm not a believer that Josh Allen is going to inevitably win a Super Bowl, like many people are. There's a lot of people who are steadfast in that the talent will eventually rise and Josh will get one. That's not who I am. That's not what I believe. I believe the opposite of that. But could maybe but you are looking at an AFC playoffs that are supposed to set up perfectly for him. I leave this game, I say, okay, listen, again, great job pounding the rock. James Cook had a 17.5 attempts prop. He gets 32 carries, right? It's smart football at the end of the day. You're down a couple of tackles, but this is just not going to move the needle for me that much on Buffalo. Though the reality is so much of this has to do with who in the AFC is really overwhelming anyone. Let me mix this in because we're going to pair. I want to kind of pair Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati all together. Tom, you're not overwhelmed by anything you saw at Denver on Sunday night against Washington. I know. I'm not. And to the point with the Bills, I would say that they got to win because it's more about Pittsburgh just being a dead team essentially at this point. And when it comes to the remainder teams in the AFC, we'll obviously get to the Pats, but Denver does not impress me. The Ravens are coming off of a game that I didn't know how they could possibly lose that game, and they somehow managed to do that. The Colts shouldn't be at that price. I know you're not super sold on the Chargers, but you'd have to say the Chargers are far more interesting than the Colts at this point. There's no one in the AFC that is a standout option that I'm running to the window to bet. There's a jumbled mess of teams. Everyone has holes, which makes things exciting because we're not dealing with, some team at the top of the mountain as we have with Kansas City in the past few years. So I think this year is very, very exciting, but I can poke holes in every single team on that list. Yeah, the one thing I would just say quickly, because we're not going to talk about it a ton, but I didn't have a problem with Denver's win last night as much as others did. Because a lot of that game being in the way that it was a little more tied to the defense, allowing some drives by Mariota. I don't worry about the Denver defense. Defenses have bad games, but I know that's a great defense. Bo Nix throws for 320. Bo Nix leads a touchdown drive to start overtime. The questions for Denver largely have to do with Bo Nix, but that defense and Sean Payton, I think, continue to set themselves up for success. What about the AFC North? Who's going to represent that division? Would it be the Bengals? We'll talk about it here on Pro Football Today.
the future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Seelig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
When LeBron James decides he's retiring, it is coming with trumpets blaring, Adam Silver by his side, and he is going on a state-by-state, coast-to-coast tour so that everyone can acknowledge how great he was and give him a parting gift and thank him for his amazing contributions to the NBA.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
The play is our fam. You don't know about our fam? Go look her up on social media. Go look at YouTube. 19-year-old from Spain, 6'6", block shots, runs the floor, rebounds, post up, inside, outside, pop the corn, serve the beer, and it can clean up the mess when you're done eating your meal. This lady is absolutely fantastic.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
The AFC North, this isn't true, what I'm about to say, but it's how I feel, is the most important division in football. Now, again, that's probably ridiculous, but here's my case. If you look right now at least entering the season, the consensus top 4 quarterbacks, consensus, not my rankings, maybe not Tom's, maybe not yours, in some order, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow. And the odds are telling us that only one of those 4 will have a home playoff game. Mm-hmm. And the odds have said it's going to be Lamar. And they still say that. The odds have moved quite a bit, telling us it could be Joe Burrow. And that, to me, becomes so important and so fascinating. And yes, I bet Cincinnati is my Super Bowl pick before the season. So yes, I'm rooting it on. But Tom, you and I have done this before various times about big long shot tickets on Cincinnati, finding which ones have the most value. The reality right now is if you played any of them, they all have value because their win over Baltimore, with the Bills taking out Pittsburgh, has made the Bengals feel alive in this division and therefore for a home playoff game for the first time since Burrow went down.
And I would say when we're talking about this and when it comes to the Bengals, frankly, I think that the Ravens' remaining schedule is actually more important than the Bengals' own schedule. And I would say the Bengals are in a spot to win potentially against the Bills. And the Ravens' schedule, if we look at that, versus the Steelers, versus the Bengals, versus the Pats, the Packers, and the Steelers. I think it's fair to say that they'll lose one of the games versus the Steelers just because that's how that series goes.
Yep.
They have to win that game versus the Bengals. But, man, the Pats and Green Bay, those are not easy teams. And I know people are going to say Green Bay is a little bit up and down, whatever it might be. That's a great defense. That is a very, very tough remaining schedule. Kev, you alluded to the Colts' remaining schedule. This remaining schedule has to be up there for just of where they sit overall in the league. So if the Bengals, if we go back to their schedule quickly, if we look at the Bengals' remaining schedule, that's a win versus the Dolphins, a win versus the Cardinals, right? That isn't that could potentially be a very easy schedule for them now that Burrow's back. T. Higgins could be on his way back. So what we see in this division is not just, if the Ravens win out, it's like they're not in a spot to win out.
Not at all. I'm going to give you a take, Tom. I know the market isn't going to line up this way, so I wouldn't need to bet it now. I could bet it if it happens, and the market will be, I think, off. If the Bengals beat the Bills next week, I think they should be favorites for the division. I do not think it'll move that far because they will only be sat there at 5-8. They're still going to have to run the table. I know it's easy to say, oh, this team will run the table. If Cincinnati beats Buffalo, I genuinely believe they will then proceed to run the table. I really believe that.
If they beat Buffalo, that 850 number is gone. That's going to be cut in half, if not more. So, we always talk about.
Let me ask you this, though, Tom.
Go ahead.
If they beat Buffalo, let's say the Ravens handle business against Pittsburgh. They are booked as favorites in that game. Okay. In Week 15 in Cincinnati, are the Bengals favorites at home against the Ravens?
Yes.
I agree.
1.5 points. It won't be much. It won't be over a field goal because they've got over a field goal.
But still favorites.
Yes, 1.5, 2, totally agree. Whatever it might be, it'd be very slight, and effectively that might be the division match, or as we said, elimination game with some of these. That might effectively be the division title game, because if the Bengals win that game, they take care of business for the Dolphins, they take care of business for the Cards. That could lock up the division for them. And frankly, I think I'm talking myself into wanting to bet the Bengals at plus 850 right now.
The case that you and I, again, we've done this before. The case that I will make is if you're going to bet Cincinnati at 850, you have to at minimum bet them to win the AFC. 35-1. If they win the North, if they're the 4 seed, it's going to be a short number. And I'll add this for Cincinnati, because again, trust me, I've gone through the permutations in my head. You don't want to lose to Buffalo. You can. You will then need help, and you will need to win all of the remaining games. But that means sweeping Baltimore and having a head-to-head tiebreaker, right? That means projecting out a split between the Ravens and the Steelers. That means the Steelers losing to Detroit, which they're supposed to. And this whole division potentially finishing 8-9, and Cincinnati breaking through on tiebreaks. We'll watch it play out. We're going to continue to try and find the value there. I'll tell you what neither one of these, any of these three teams are going to be. Super Bowl favorites. Although, might be a good thing. We'll explain after the break. We're live with you right here on SportsGrid.
The future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Seelig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
When LeBron James decides he's retiring, it is coming with trumpets blaring, Adam Silver by his side, and he is going on a state-by-state, coast-to-coast tour so that everyone can acknowledge how great he was and give him a parting gift and thank him for his amazing contributions to the NBA.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
The play is our fam. You don't know about our fam? Go look her up on social media. Go look at YouTube. 19-year-old from Spain, 6'6", block shots, runs the floor, rebounds, post up, inside, outside, pop the corn, serve the beer, and it can clean up the mess when you're done eating your meal. This lady is absolutely fantastic.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Right here on SportsGrid, it is Pro Football Today. Kevin Walsh, Tom Vecchio filling in for our guy Joe Lisi. Great to have Tom with us. We get to go through a lot of changing markets. And one market that always has movement is the Super Bowl favorite, or the Super Bowl market in general, I really should say. The favorite is the LA Rams. It was heading into that matchup against Carolina. Our research department put together a little interesting trend, though, that appears to be building, where the Super Bowl favorite has now not won in 5 straight weeks. Kansas City responsible for the bulk of that due to losses and buys. You had Philly in that loss to Dallas, and now the Rams in their loss to Carolina. The Rams actually stayed a Super Bowl favorite, so perhaps Cardinals money line, add it to your card. The reality, though, Tom, I was on the Panthers in this game at 10.5, and I flatly said, I don't think they'll win the game. Like, I can't victory lap any aspect of the upset. I did not think the Rams would drop this game. I thought the Panthers could hang. The Panthers, by the way, 6-0 against the number off a loss this season. A spotless 6-0 against the number in this spot. But, Tom, what was your biggest takeaway from the Rams losing this game?
Biggest takeaway is honestly credit to the Panthers and doing it shorthanded, players hurt, players suspended after the Monday night game versus the 49ers. It was just a well-rounded team effort. And obviously it was a sloppy game metaphorically and figuratively due to the weather, but they caused the trouble to Stafford that he hadn't seen in literally 10 weeks since his last interception. So they did all the things that they needed to do. The Rams didn't operate efficiently. We could say, the Rams are a West Coast team coming east, playing at the 1 p.m. window. I don't think that's really that. It's just a spot where I think we're going to look back on this and say, the Rams lost it. But if they end up going to the Super Bowl, no one's going to remember this game. So I just see it as a schedule loss, essentially, for the Rams coming off a short week. It's not a short week for the Rams, but a short, trip going east. And I don't make too much of it. As I said to you last week, I think they are the best team in the league. They're not miles ahead of everyone else. And this is just another reason we can poke a hole in the mess. We can poke a hole in every single team.
So I think you're right that we can poke a hole in every single team, but we had seen the Rams run out to, I think you could, through pricing, and you might still make this argument, Tier 1 alone. I mean, right now, looking at one book here, they're plus 470. Next closest is plus 850. I mean, that's a legitimate gap. And here's the thing about the LA Rams. Do I think that they have an argument for best team in football? Absolutely. Absolutely. But when we go through the resume, who on their schedule do we respect? The Texans? Sure. At home, a 5-point win. The Eagles? A collapse and a loss. The Colts? A touchdown win. Although, for weeks, the Colts, the fumble, A.D. Mitchell, right? That got changed around a little bit. The Niners, they split with. A loss to Mac Jones at home, though, is on that resume. They smashed Jacksonville. They smashed Tampa Bay. Seattle, they beat only by 2 at home with 4 interceptions. Carolina beats them. What I'm getting at is the Rams are discussed and booked like they are in their own universe, Tom. They're not. They've shown us before yesterday, but now overwhelming with yesterday. They're not in their own universe. And I don't think the Rams number is as ridiculous as the Colts number. We saw, again, they were AFC favorites while being the shortest division favorite in the conference. The whole thing was a mess. But the Rams, Tom, play in a division with not just one other threat in Seattle, but the Niners are still a threat to win this division. Because look at the remaining schedules. We see it. They're clear as day. Aside from playing one another, they're all just supposed to beat everyone else. And for the Rams and the Seahawks, and you can throw the Niners into this as well. One of them, Tom, is going to be the 1 seed. But that means the other 2 are going to be the 5 and the 6. So I don't think I love the Rams being under 5-1 to win a Super Bowl when they might be the 5 seed.
I would say realistically, this number should be 6.5 to 1, where
Yeah.
a plus 470 number is kind of ridiculous at this point. Again, I can make the argument, and I think a lot of people would make the argument that they are the best team in the league. And how we evaluate them in terms of what qualifies them or what metrics we're using to say that they are the best team in the league, that is going to vary from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that what we have seen from them at times can be a bit deceptive, given the fact of, beating bad teams, pouring on the points. But a lot of people will just simply point to their underlying efficiency, whether it be against good teams or bad teams. We will sit here and say, they didn't cover the number against, at home when they, when they faced the Seahawks, and they almost lost that game despite having 4 picks via Sam Darnold. So I see it as just a very up and down team in terms of the minutia, but overall they are very strong.
Look, this is the thing for the Rams. They're balanced and have a Super Bowl coach quarterback combination that has won a Super Bowl. But again, are they the best team? Maybe. But Philly might be the best team. I think the Niners could be the best team. I think Seattle could be the best team. I do. I think Denver could be the best team. I think New England could be the best. We have to decide, is it open or not? And the Rams number and the Rams conversations often tell us it's not. I disagree. It is. It is open. And the Rams, to me, are as beatable as the next team. We've seen that play out this season.
Right. The thing I would say is, and it absolutely should be open, but the thing I would say for other teams is no one else has shown us enough to warrant themselves being in the conversation of being a favorite. The Packers losing at home to the Panthers is bad. So every other team also has, a ding on their resume, and the Rams have done just enough more in order to vault themselves into that tier of their own. The Seahawks have had issues of their own. Philly's had issues of their own. The Bills have had plenty of issues. The Denver winning close games, barely beating the Jets, barely beating the Giants, barely beating the Commanders. Those are issues when it's all said and done.
On the Carolina side of it, I give them a lot of credit. How real of a threat do you think they are to potentially take the South off of Tampa Bay?
I don't think they're a threat. I think they have to play Tampa twice, right? They've yet to play, so I think they'll split the series with Tampa. But at a certain point, I think Tampa just has them at arm's length. And even if the Bucs don't go into the end of the season blazing on fire, they will just win the division by default, essentially.
Yeah, I think some of it could also just come down to strength of schedule as well, like you said. The Bucs may only need a split to, like you said, completely kind of stiff arm them, and that be the difference of it all. I'll add this, though, as someone who played Ted McMillan prior to last week to an Offensive Rookie of the Year, I want to make sure that I'm not getting too excited at the market's movement. Because, Tom, I know you're a fan of the talent that is Emeka Egbuka. It feels like Ted McMillan's about to stuff him in a locker in terms of this race goes. I mean, Emeka just doesn't feel like the same guy. It's against the normal progression of rookie receivers, but it's just not the same right now.
It isn't. The injuries keep lingering with him. The hip, the groin injuries, I don't want to say have compounded as the season has gone on, but the explosiveness that we saw in the first 8 weeks, a lot of people thought that this market was all wrapped up and said and done. And then as things develop with Ted and obviously Jackson Dart in conversation now, I think that is a real sticking point when his Emeka Egbuka, his production has fallen off pretty significantly compared to where he was. The touchdowns are going to change, of course, but the yards and just the feel that he has now doesn't really seem the same as it was in the first 5 weeks.
Yeah, to Tom's point for Emeka, he has, in his last 7 games, the game against New England, he had 6 for 115 and a touchdown. In the other 6 games, no touchdowns. Once he went above 50 yards. He's had under 5 receptions in 4 of those 6 games. It's just, he at the moment, I know McMillan's played an extra game, has now tied him for touchdowns and has him beat for catches and yards. It's going to be an interesting race to follow. There's a number of other storylines, though, that we have to pick up. Shador start number 2. What is going on with the Miami Dolphins and their resurgence? The Jetsies. We'll get to it right here on Sports.
the future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Seelig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
When LeBron James decides he's retiring, it is coming with trumpets blaring, Adam Silver by his side, and he is going on a state-by-state, coast-to-coast tour so that everyone can acknowledge how great he was and give him a parting gift and thank him for his amazing contributions to the NBA.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
The play is our fam. You don't know about our fam? Go look her up on social media. Go look at YouTube. 19-year-old from Spain, 6'6", block shots, runs the floor, rebounds, post up, inside, outside, pop the corn, serve the beer, and it can clean up the mess when you're done eating your meal. This lady is absolutely fantastic.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circa Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Back right here on SportsGrid. A couple of items we want to hit before we get to your primetime preview. I'll start in Cleveland, Tom, where the Browns took on the San Francisco 49ers. Pretty ugly game here. Weather was, in the forecast, so the expectations were it would actually probably look something like this. The Shedeur Sanders, everyone's going to continue to track the performances. And, again, I think the big thing for Shedeur is he continues to buy himself another rep, and he did that. Therefore, I see it for him personally. The game is a success. He's going to get the start next week. Did you have a big takeaway from this one?
Nothing that dramatic. Like, he went over his completions. He went over his yards, if I remember correctly, which was 140.5, if I saw that out there. And like you said, he bought himself another week at the table, essentially. What I want to see is now let's flash some upside. Like, it's good to be the starter. It's good to be named the starter, but let's start building on that. Like, let's add in elements of the game. And some of this is not only him, like it's the coaching, it's the play calling. Are they going to allow him to throw it deep? Are they dialing up those type of plays? So I want to see add one piece to the puzzle every week. Take one less. If you had the exact same stat line next week, but took 2 fewer sacks, that's a win. One less incompletion, one less this, one less that, one more of that. And that's where we'll see the actual progression happen.
Yeah, I will say for Shedeur, I don't think he has been all that great in any of these games. I also think, though, he was so bad against Baltimore, right? A lot of those, the sample size is so small. Like, it's going to be hard for any of his metrics to look good for a while. I do think there is some legitimate pressure, though, against Tennessee to look good. Now, maybe the weather will remove that pressure because that's just what Cleveland looks like when we get to November, December. But they're a real favorite against a really bad team. It's not just about winning in that spot to me. Like, I think you want to see Shedeur look legitimately better in that football game. Though then again, on the other side is the number 1 overall pick, and he has been start to finish the worst quarterback in football this year in Cam Ward. Another rookie quarterback is Tyler Shuck, and it's not his fault, but it's one of the most useless draft picks in the history of football. Pick 40, you can get a really good player at 40. And instead, the Saints took Tyler Shuck, and he's going to get himself about, 8 or so starts for the Saints, and he's proven he's not the guy, and they're going to move on from him. But the real story in this one is Miami, Tom, stacking wins. And I don't think they have any chance to make the playoffs in the AFC. I think that's silly. But I don't know. I mean, maybe they're looking at their schedule thinking Jets, Steelers, Bengals, why not us?
Right. And a lot of people are pointing to this, that the Dolphins, despite how they started, have a very easy end to the season. I would look at the team overall and how they've been performing. I think it's important to take something out of this game, which was pretty ugly when it's all said and done. Tua didn't look great against a pretty terrible defense. Bad performance from him. HN's amazing. We know that. But ultimately, I'm not sure there's enough talent on the Dolphins to obviously push to the playoffs. I don't think anyone's expecting them. Can they cause some noise? Can they cause an upset? It's clear that the players are still playing for McDaniel. Yes, I think those things can happen, but I'm not expecting much more beyond that.
Yeah, I want to just make it known that I have real estate, and I'd like for people to get in while they still can on Mike McDaniel is good Island, because I believe that. I actually think Mike McDaniel is good. And I think the quarterback is atrocious. I think Tua has regressed. And this team was left for dead countless times this season, at 0-3, at 1-5, at 1-6, at 2-7. And then they beat Buffalo. And now they're just gutting out awful victories. And people will say that they're worse off for that. Not if it gets them to keep Mike McDaniel. I truly believe Mike McDaniel is worth keeping for this team. Another coach whose stock is up, ATS monster Aaron Glenn. Look at this guy. Just won't stop covering numbers. The New York Jets are now, depending when you got in, either 5-0 or 4-0-1 against the number in their last 5 games. This team's got moxie. This team has no quarterback. They got minimal talent, but they keep winning. Again, it's probably not in their best interest. That's probably part of the reason they're stacking wins. That's all right. The Jets keep doing it. They keep covering. I love this group, Tom.
Yes, coming into the season, I said that Glenn looks and appears to be a coach that players want to play for. And there would be a learning curve. There's a talent deficiency at times with the Jets roster, but players want to play for him. Like, coming from the Dan Campbell tree, players want to get up for games. Like you said, there's that it factor almost with him, knowing that he's going to force his players to bring their full effort game in and game out. Laying the 3 points yesterday with the Atlanta Falcons was crazy talk. So I was on the Jets. To say that I was thrilled about taking the Jets, no, but it'd be more about fading the Falcons and Kirk Cousins, who are just a dead team at this point. Good for the Jets. We have to balance, should they actually be winning? Do they want the draft pick? But I think they are in a good spot to close out the season. I think you're right, though, to say guys want to play for Aaron Glenn. That is the only way that you can kind of get legit effort after you sell off all your best guys. But I think Aaron Glenn could be perfect for some, like, rah-rah, now's your chance, step-up stuff. But to also be clear, against New England they covered because it was a monster number, and against Baltimore they covered because it was a monster number, and they beat the Browns and the Falcons, who were awful, at home, and then the Cincinnati thing was a total luck situation. Last one. 9. I am sorry. I'm just going to become a 9 guy because it turns out he is way better than Max Brosmer. Max Brosmer owes me money. How dare he throw that interception that opened this game up to the point of no return? What an atrocious performance. Sam Darnold, by the way, not all that good. The fact that people wanted him to win MVP was a disgrace, but the Seahawks got a 26-0 win. Yeah, this game is it's like a nothing win for me, or it's a nothing game for me, kind of like the Bills and the Steelers. Like, I knew the Seahawks were going to win. Whether or not they covered was a different story. JSN did nothing, which is, a little surprise just considering how good he has been. All I'm going to say is the Justin Jefferson trade request over the summer is going to hit like a ton of bricks.
And Justin, my man, when you look back on draft night, you know where you should have landed. And it's time to right that wrong, because there is going to be an open wide receiver spot in Philadelphia. Let's get over to your primetime preview right here on Pro Football Today.
the future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Seelig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
When LeBron James decides he's retiring, it is coming with trumpets blaring, Adam Silver by his side, and he is going on a state-by-state, coast-to-coast tour so that everyone can acknowledge how great he was and give him a parting gift and thank him for his amazing contributions to the NBA.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
The play is our fam. You don't know about our fam? Go look her up on social media. Go look at YouTube. 19-year-old from Spain, 6'6", block shots, runs the floor, rebounds, post up, inside, outside, pop the corn, serve the beer, and it can clean up the mess when you're done eating your meal. This lady is absolutely fantastic.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Primetime preview. Sadly, this is not a breakdown of 9 versus 5 next week. Jaden Daniels potentially could be back to play J.J. McCarthy. I'm a 9 guy. I can't. He won me over. He's so bad, he won me over. That's all I can tell you about J.J. McCarthy. We have some primetime preview to get to, though, here. Can I ask you this quickly, Tom, just because we didn't talk any Chargers-Raiders? I think the biggest thing coming out of this game is whether it's Chip Kelly or Brian Kelly or Greg Olsen or Jason Witten or Pete Carroll or you. The Raiders' run game is an abomination to the sport, and the fact that every time they get in a 4th and 1, they think maybe this time we'll pick up the yard, and instead it's again Ashton Genty being hit behind the line of scrimmage. Like, I don't care. The Chargers did what they were supposed to do. Good for them. I'm not knocking them. The Raiders all have been a disgrace this season.
Yeah, I was going to say Chip Kelly or Charlie Kelly. It doesn't really matter who's there. And again, the Raiders' issues run deep. It's the offensive line. It doesn't matter who the play caller is there. There's so many issues with them. And again, this is just one of those games where it's just like, yeah, the Chargers were going to win. Whether or not they covered, was the question. But between the Bills, between the Seahawks, the Chargers, they were all slated to win. They all took care of business. The real takeaway is Herbert and his left hand that is fractured. What's the issue with that? Yeah. And then moving forward, that's really the biggest takeaway from this game. And everyone's going to talk about, Genty and his lack of production. Some of that's not on him. Some of it is.
You know what? I can't help myself. We're going to get to Pat's Giants in a second. Now, hold on. What is your early, in your mind, Ashton Genty RB what draft range?
Next year?
Yeah. Because he was like, what, 5th or 6th, right? This year?
He'll probably be, I would say low end, like RB 12, somewhere around there. Because
you think he stays top 12?
It's again, 12 to 15, and I think it's mainly going to be based on the volume of work, and there's no competition in the backfield for him, and especially how the draft goes. If the Raiders bolster their offensive line and they sign guys and they bring in a new offensive coordinator, like a lot of that can be very beneficial, and that's just a giant question mark at this point. Fair
enough. Trevion Henderson, though, right now probably would go in front of him for a dynasty league, I would think.
I think that's a really strong role.
Pat's Giants, 7.5 point number, 10-2 versus 2-10. Jackson Dart's back. He plays Drake May. What are you looking for this game here, Tom? What's catching your eye?
Honestly, and this is something I don't always do, but I'm expecting some points. A lot of primetime games, I love taking unders, but the 46.5 number is really good. If this number was 48.5, 49.5, I would be hammering the under. But, we get a 28-21 final, 27-24, somewhere around there. I think we're in for like a modest amount of scoring tonight. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to see the Giants have been scoring points with or without Jackson Dart. They're going to get there. There may be some turnovers. We've talked about before that the Pats and their offense, they got a lot of options. They're scoring. So you give me the Pats to get to 28. I think we can see the Giants get to 20. I don't think this game is going to be in the upper 50s in terms of points, and I think it'll go over by a handful. I think we're in for a good game tonight.
I love it. As someone who often, has scoffed at by Lisi when I tell him if one team is favored by 1.5 and the other team should be favored by 1.5, that really matters to me. When it's not, I love that 46.5 can get you to the over, and if it was 48.5, could be a best bet under. I love that. I do. I mean that very sincerely. In the back, they were astonished. I heard the reaction, but I think it's a great breakdown. I will say, I look at this spot, and I think there's passing within the game, and I think that lends to an over as well. I think some of it is the Giants. There's reports already they're not going to run Jackson Dart as much, which is a decision like, of course not. There's no way. From a touchdown perspective, New England's given up, I believe, 20 passing touchdowns to 4 rushing touchdowns. So the touchdowns come through the air primarily. Drake May is coming off of consecutive games without multiple passing touchdowns. First time this season. So I was workshopping maybe May for 2, Dart for 1, probably land around even money. I know it's going to be a little gimmicky, Tom, over touchdown yardage. I think these teams are vulnerable to explosives a little bit. It's in the 70s. Again, it's a little, like, are you giving that as the best bet? I don't know. But I also don't think the Pats are going to run away from throwing the ball just because they have an injured offensive line. I think they're going to still look to lay on their franchise, lean on the franchise quarterback here.
Right. I was considering Jackson Dart under pass attempts just because, A, they don't want him dropping back just so he doesn't get hit. He doesn't have to scramble, just, kind of keep him safe. But then I didn't get there. It was a 29-30.5 number. I like Theo Johnson tonight. I like Trevion Henderson tonight. I think they'll play both big roles.
Jackson Dart right now, again, is in the mid-20s from a rushing yard perspective. Curious to see if he truly, they're not going to design runs. Are they going to stop him from scrambling, though? Is he going to stop himself from scrambling? I think it's a fascinating question in this game. We appreciate all of you. I'll see you later tonight on Game Time Decisions. Don't be surprised if you see Tom there as well. See you next time.
The future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Seelig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
When LeBron James decides he's retiring, it is coming with trumpets blaring, Adam Silver by his side, and he is going on a state-by-state, coast-to-coast tour so that everyone can acknowledge how great he was and give him a parting gift and thank him for his amazing contributions to the NBA.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
The play is our fam. You don't know about our fam? Go look her up on social media. Go look at YouTube. 19-year-old from Spain, 6'6", block shots, runs the floor, rebounds, post up, inside, outside, pop the corn, serve the beer, and it can clean up the mess when you're done eating your meal. This lady is absolutely fantastic.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circa Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, All Team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.